When I realized that the man in the inn had met the convict I helped on the marshes, I wanted to take Joe away. Before we could go, however, the man took out a new coin. He wrapped it in some paper and gave it to me. "This is yours," he said, "but be careful." Feeling frightened, I took the coin and left with Joe. When we got home, we realized that the paper wrapped around the coin was a pound note. Joe went back to the inn immediately to try to find the man and return his note to him. However, the man had left. Mrs. Joe put the pound note on a shelf where it would be safe, and there it remained. On my next visit to Miss Havisham's house, Estella took me into a gloomy room where 3 ladies and a gentleman were waiting. They were Miss Havisham's relatives, Sarah, Georgiana, Camilla and Raymond Pocket, and they had also come to see her that day. A bell rang far away. Miss Havisham was ready to see me. Holding up her candle, Estella led me through the dark house. "Well, boy," she asked. "Am I pretty?" "Yes, you are very pretty. Why don't you cry?" she asked, looking unkindly at me. "I'll never cry again," I said. Just then, we met a large, dark-haired man on the stairs. "Ah, you are a neighbor, I think?" he asked. "Yes, sir," I replied. "Why are you here, boy?" "Miss Havisham asked for me," I explained. "Well, behave yourself. This is not a place for children to play," he said, before walking away. I thought that he might be a doctor, and I continued walking up the stairs. I soon found myself in Miss Havisham's room again. Everything was the same as before. "So, are you ready to play?" she asked. I said that I did, and she told me to wait for her in the dining room opposite. "I don't think I am, madam," I replied. "Well, do you want to work then?" When I entered the dark room, I could see a long table laid with a tablecloth and plates, prepared for a wedding celebration. But now it was dusty and covered with spiders' webs. The room looked like it had been exactly the same for many years. There were spiders and mice everywhere. I was looking around the room and watching the spiders when Miss Havisham came quietly into the room behind me. "What do you think that is?" asked Miss Havisham, pointing at a tall shape in the center of the table. I went closer. "It's a cake, Pip. A wedding cake. Mine," she went on. "And now, walk with me." She asked me to walk with her around the room, which we did for some minutes, until Estella and the Pockets came in. They asked about Miss Havisham's health and wished her a happy birthday, but she sent him away. "That wedding cake was brought here a long time before you were born," Miss Havisham told me. "And everything is still here." She stood for a long time, looking at the table. Then we returned to her dressing room and Miss Havisham told Estella and me to play. So we sat down to play games in her dressing room, but this time Estella refused to speak to me. Finally, Miss Havisham asked me to return in a few days and allowed me to leave. Estella led me out of the house, again put my food and drink on the ground and shut the door. Alone in the garden, I was surprised to see another boy looking at me out of a window. He disappeared into the house, and then came out into the garden to speak to me. He had very pale skin and short fair hair, so in my mind, I called him the pale young gentleman. "Hello, who let you in?" he asked. "Estella," I replied. "Come and fight, then," he said, preparing to hit me. The boy was my age, but much taller than me. I ran at him hard and he fell over. He jumped up, prepared to fight again, so I ran at him again. This time he got a black eye. He did not seem to be strong and never hit me hard. The fight continued for several minutes until the boy was on his knees, saying, "You have won." He was so brave that I felt sorry for him. "Can I help?" I asked. "No. Thank you. Goodbye," he answered. I knew that it was time to leave. I did not see the pale young gentleman at Miss Havisham's again, although my visits continued. Nothing ever changed. Miss Havisham sat in her wedding dress, in her dusty dressing room. Estella and I played games as she watched, and Miss Havisham asked if I thought Estella was pretty. I always said yes, and Miss Havisham seemed happy with this answer. Mrs. Joe and Uncle Pumblechook had been talking about the same thing ever since I had started to visit Miss Havisham. They were sure that she wanted to give me all her money, and they wanted my visits to continue. "What will you be when you grow up, Pip?" she asked one day. "I am going to become Joe's apprentice and learn to be a blacksmith," I said. "Then tell Joe to come here at once," she replied. "When Joe came with me on my next visit, Pip will become your apprentice now," she said. "He is a good boy and this is his reward. The money is to pay for his apprenticeship. But that's your lot. This is all you will get from me, Mr. Gargery. Shall I visit you again, Miss Havisham? I asked. "No," she replied. "Joe is your boss now. Estella, show him out." And so my apprenticeship with Joe began. But I had changed. I no longer wanted to be a blacksmith. Now, I was ashamed of my home and my family. Estella was often in my thoughts, although I did not see her anymore. I was sure that she did not like my position in life, so I continued my education and worked hard. This was largely thanks to Biddy, who gave me lessons and taught me as much as she knew. Although she was older than me, Biddy was my friend. About a year after my apprenticeship with Joe had begun, I asked Joe for an afternoon's holiday, so that I could visit Miss Havisham and thank her for helping me. When Orlick, Joe's workman, heard that I was going, he was very angry. He did not think it was right that I should have an afternoon's holiday, while he could not have one too. I did not like Orlick. He was large and slow, and he often tried to make my life difficult at work. An argument Miss Havisham gave him a large bag of money. Began between Orlick and Mrs. Joe, who wanted me to see Miss Havisham again. In the end, Joe had to stop them. But there was something strange about Orlick, but I could not put my finger on what it was.